Good morning, guys. Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning. Gonna wait a couple minutes here. I have a couple of quick announcements, and then we'll go right into the lecture. Just keep checking in as you log in here. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Get a few more people logged in here. Good morning, Roman. Good morning. Sorry, guys, just replying to a few emails here. Monday morning emails are pretty thick, pretty heavy. Monday morning emails. All right. Let's give everyone a couple more minutes since it is just 8 o'clock now. Sit tight for a few more minutes. We'll get right into fat and cholesterol and kind of their role. How fat affects cholesterol is probably the most important topic. I would open up Canvas and go to the pages entitled Fats and cholesterol. Good morning, guys. I'd split screen and find those. You're gonna want to look at the notes kind of while we're talking, so you don't get anything too confused or mixed up. Again, the page is fats and cholesterol is kind of where you want to be right now. And then a couple more minutes, we'll get people. Good morning, Jocelyn. We'll get people logged in here and we'll get rolling. Good morning, Jose. Jasmine, good morning. Okay. All right, let's get rolling here, and the people who are tardy can be tardy. Couple things. I'll get caught up on grading this week, so I know we've had a couple of weeks of assignments that I need to go through. So just keep doing your assignments, stay on top of your stuff. Again, kind of a unique semester in the sense that basically grading off participation. You're doing your assignments, logging in, you're getting your credit. So just keep plugging through. Hopefully this stuff kind of goes by the way of the dodo, if you know what I mean, in the spring, and we're back in the classroom, but I don't know if that's going to pan out or not. So as we move forward, keep in mind, I think we got a couple more weeks in this unit, this week and next. Next Wednesday, we don't have class. Next Wednesday is November 11th. So keep in mind that is Veterans Day, and the college campus is closed. College is closed, so we won't have anything. So we'll actually end this unit a week from today. And then the following 3 weeks, we'll go through major killers. We're going to talk about diabetes and cancer and cardiovascular disease. And then after that 3-week session, we're pretty much done, because if without looking at the calendar right now in front of me, I believe the last week of instruction is the week that we come back from Thanksgiving. So at that point, we're pretty much going to wrap it up and be done. So we're getting close. So keep in mind, you may have some other classes that have like a semester length assignment. Don't get behind. Or if you have a term paper or a project that's due, I would try to hammer out as much as you can over Thanksgiving, so you're not too worried about it during Thanksgiving. Because the other thing is, I know come Wednesday of Thanksgiving, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you're not going to be in a lot of contact with your instructors. I mean, most people close their computers and they're done for 3 or 4 days before they even look at their material. So make sure you're staying on top of your work. But with that said, today we're going to talk about fat. We're going to talk about cholesterol really quickly, give you a short assignment. So if you look at your fats page, it's broken down into mainly 4 categories: saturated, monounsaturated, polyunsaturated, and then we have trans fat. So the thing about fat is, for years, it has been given a bad rep. In other words, fat equals fat. In other words, if you eat fat, you'll get fat. And that's not necessarily the case. Fat plays a very essential role in the body. And part of your assignment will be looking up fat today and finding out what that role is. But for the most part, it does a number of things in our system, not excluding helping our cognitive function, helping our vision. It provides insulation and padding for some essential tissues in our bodies. It also acts as a source of fuel. It is the most calorically dense macronutrient we have. As I mentioned in the past, calories per gram with fat is higher than with protein or carbohydrate. In other words, with protein and carbohydrate, we get 4 calories per gram that we consume. When we consume fat, we get 9 calories per gram. So it's definitely most calorically dense, most energy dense, if that makes sense. And the bottom line is, sugar and other processed foods just play a much larger role, or more significant role, in us gaining weight than does fat. And that has been pretty well studied the last 15, 20 years. And we have a much better understanding of what carbohydrate does to our body in comparison to what fat does to our body. In other words, fat isn't as bad as what we have been led to believe the last 30, 40 years. So your fats can be broken down as such if you're looking at your page: saturated, monounsaturated, polyunsaturated, and trans. So saturated fat is primarily introduced in our diet through animal products. So eggs, chicken, beef, milk, cheeses, things of that nature. However, saturated fat does occur naturally. It occurs naturally in coconut oil and palm oil. Saturated fat, most studies indicate that saturated fat does raise your LDL, right? Which we'll talk about what LDL and HDL is in a minute. It raises your LDL and it raises your cardiovascular disease risk as well as your cancer risk. However, we're not necessarily sure that it's saturated fat that leads to cardiovascular disease or cancer, because a diet high in saturated fat doesn't necessarily mean a bad diet or a good diet. What it means is people who have a tendency to have a diet high in saturated fat have a tendency to have a diet that is low in fiber. Therein lies the problem. If you're having a lot of meat and a lot of cheese and a lot of bread and a lot of crackers and cookies and processed type foods, you're not getting the nutrient dense fiber that we get from fruits and vegetables. Therefore, now, obviously, we're at an elevated risk for things like cardiovascular disease and colon cancer, because you need fiber to push these materials through your body. In other words, fiber plays a significant role in the reduction of cancers. It plays a significant role in the reduction of cardiovascular disease. And next week, we will talk about fiber. Fiber is absolutely essential. Okay. So saturated fat, primarily animal sources, poultry, chicken skin, beef, milk, eggs, cheese, things of that nature, right? For the most part, animal products. And then our next fat is monounsaturated. Monounsaturated fats are the fats that we primarily find in plant-based sources. So we find them in avocados, guacamole, nuts, all nuts, almonds, cashews, pistachios, peanuts, all nuts, and all nut butters. Peanut butter, almond butter, pistachio butter, all of them, cashew butter, all of them. We find it in olives, right? So monounsaturated fat is the primary fat that we find in the Mediterranean diet. And the Mediterranean diet, by and large, is understood to be very heart healthy. It shows to lower your LDL. It shows to lower inflammation in the body, right? So again, we find health correlating to not only consuming fat, but making sure that we consume and not just animal products and processed foods, but fruits and vegetables, right? So avocados are really important to your health. Nuts, great source of energy, very calorically dense. So we have to be careful. We don't want to consume a lot of nuts, but having a small bag or a handful of cashews or almonds or pistachios a couple times a week is actually very healthy for you. They have fiber, they have a little protein, they have fat, energy dense, they give you a full feeling. They're very satiating for most people. Most people enjoy having a handful of nuts, and they feel full when they do that. A very good snack to incorporate, and a fat that you want to consume because, again, heart healthy. They're coming from plants, and they're very good at lowering inflammation. But more importantly, they're fibrous. They're helping push the material through your body, right? Then we have our polyunsaturated. So polyunsaturated fats can be broken down into two categories. You have your omega-3 and you have your omega-6. So your omega-3 is the fatty acid chain that we find in fatty fish like mackerel, salmon, anchovies, sardines, and in tunas and other fish as well. But the mackerel and the sardines, anchovies, and the salmon are kind of the big players in that. You do find omega-3 in some nuts and seeds, chia seeds, things of that nature. And in very, very low doses, you'll find them in some leafy green vegetables like spinach. Omega-3 is probably the powerhouse fat that we want to consume as much as possible. In other words, regularly consuming omega-3 fatty acid has proven to lower your cancer risk, lower inflammation in your body, and overall is a very good thing for us to consume. So much so that I would encourage you, if you're not someone who is getting a lot of omega-3, I would supplement, like get a nice krill oil, fish oil. There are plenty of good supplements on the market where you can incorporate the omega-3, and that's good. That's a good fat to have. Omega-6 is kind of like the black sheep of the polyunsaturated fat family. There are some studies that indicate omega-6 lowers your LDL, but there's some studies that indicate it lowers your HDL. And again, we'll talk about HDL and LDL in a minute. We'll kind of bring all this together. You don't want to lower your HDL. You really don't. Omega-6 is primarily found in corn, soybean, and a lot of the times it's introduced into things like salad dressing, mayo, mayonnaise, things of that nature. Now, there's some studies that indicate if your consumption of omega-6 exceeds your consumption of omega-3, then you're at an elevated risk for cancer, which, that's neither here nor there. I do think that you already eat a tremendous amount of corn. You already eat a tremendous amount of soy, and you may not know that. But if you start reading ingredients, and especially if you're eating a lot of packaged food, like basically anything that comes in a box, if you're reading the back, if you're reading the ingredients, you'll see hydrogenated corn oil, hydrogenated soybean oil, hydrogenated vegetable oil. These are omega-6 fats that are essentially being introduced to your diet, and they're not necessarily good. We want to stay away from as much processed and hydrogenated oils as possible. We don't want to do a lot of cooking with corn oil or soybean oil or vegetable oil. Those are not good for us. They have a tendency to put the body in kind of haywire. In other words, your body doesn't understand the fat. Its molecular structure doesn't agree with the system. And there's a lot of argument that this is the primary source of inflammation in the body. In other words, you're constantly introducing this oil, especially if you're eating a lot of processed foods. I mean, you'll find this in your bread. You'll find it in your cereal. You'll find it in a lot of bottled dressings and things of that nature. If you drink Coffee Mate, look at your regular Coffee Mate. It has hydrogenated oils in it. We want to stay away from this. So yeah, I think it's possibly very likely that if you consume a lot of omega-6, a lot of corn-based products, soy-based products, a lot of hydrogenated oil-based products, that's not healthy. Are you going to get cancer and die? I don't know. But the studies indicate that those type of oils are not what we should be consuming on a regular basis. Not at all. In other words, we should be flipping that, going from omega-6 towards omega-3, going from polyunsaturated towards monounsaturated, and even better yet, if you can start incorporating some of those saturated fats out of your diet, getting some of those saturated fats out of your diet and incorporating some monounsaturated fats, you're going to find yourself a lot healthier. You're going to find yourself losing weight. And then we come to trans fat. Trans fat is the fat that we absolutely need to avoid at all costs. We should not be regularly consuming trans fat. Trans fat is the fat we find in fried foods, donuts, French fries, deep fried burritos, packaged goodies. Trans fat is the killer. Trans fat is the type of fat, when you introduce it to your metabolism goes haywire. It does not understand, does not read it as a food. This has to do with the fact that it's just processed to a point where molecularly it's changed. A deep fried burrito or a donut has absolutely no nutritional value at all. It's all empty calories. It's cooked at such a high temperature. The dough is refined and processed. Then, they slap some sugar on it, whatever topping your donut has, or even inject it into the donut. These are all empty calories. These are all things we want to stay away from. And why is this so bad? Trans fat not only raises your LDL, but lowers your HDL. And again, we do not want to lower our HDL. We do not. Okay. So let's go to the next page. Cholesterol. So what's LDL? What's HDL? What does all this mean? LDL stands for low density lipoprotein. LDL is the type of cholesterol in your body. And keep in mind, your body produces cholesterol, but we also consume cholesterol when we eat by consuming fats. Low density lipoprotein is the type of cholesterol that wants to attach to your arterial walls. It's thick, it's fatty, and it wants to hang around. It doesn't want to necessarily be used. It just likes to hang around. Conversely, HDL, high density lipoprotein, also produced in the liver, is the type of cholesterol that will attach itself to the LDL and bring it back to the liver for either reusing, for metabolism, or for waste. In other words, our TC, our total cholesterol, is a combination of both our LDL and our HDL. These two numbers are both measured in milligrams per deciliter. Together, when you add those two numbers, that equals our total cholesterol. So again, LDL, low density lipoprotein, think low, down, and dirty, think not good. HDL, high density lipoprotein, think it's taking the high road. It's trying to help you out. It's trying to help you burn fat. It's trying to keep your system healthy. That number we don't want to lower. So what are those numbers? So LDL, the ideal number is less than 100 milligrams per deciliter. Once you start getting into 120, 130, you're relatively high. 150, 160, you're getting high. You start getting close to 200 in just LDL, your doctor is probably going to want to talk to you about either losing weight, significant dietary changes, or even medication for your high cholesterol. HDL, also measured in milligrams per deciliter. We don't want to fall beneath 60. 60 is the ideal number. 70 is the ideal number. Those are good numbers. And again, HDL is grabbing the LDL and bringing it back to the liver for recycling, for usage, not for just building up on your arterial wall. So these two numbers adding up together, let's say you had the ideal number. You had your LDL is 100 milligrams per deciliter. Your HDL is 60 milligrams per deciliter. You add those two things together. You have your total cholesterol is 160 milligrams per deciliter. The ideal number is under 200. You're good. Cholesterol numbers can vary person to person. There are some genetic components to it. In other words, one of my best friends, growing up, I mean, even in high school, he had very high cholesterol. Not so much of an issue. What we don't want is a really high LDL and a very low HDL. So you're at 180 LDL and you're at 40 HDL. That's a recipe for cardiovascular disease. In other words, your body's inundated with the cholesterol that we don't want, and the cholesterol we do want is struggling just to keep up. We don't want that, right? So again, improving your numbers, HDL, how do we do that? Real simple, okay? Real simple. We need to switch to monounsaturated fats. Have the avocados, have the nuts, have olives, cook with olive oil at low temperatures, okay, at low temperatures. Don't cook at olive oil at very high temperatures. You'll scald it, you'll burn it, and that's not good. Consuming good olive oil as a salad dressing is very good too. The only other way to increase your HDL is by exercise, mainly strength training, right? Again, here we get back to working out, lifting, putting stress on your body is a good thing, and it's going to increase that HDL, which is what we want, right? It's the only way to health. It's the only way to health, to start burning off some of that bad fat, allow the good fat to do what it's got to do. Okay. All right. So saturated fats, they're not necessarily bad. Consuming animal product is good. Why? Because it's very nutrient dense. In other words, an egg is one of the perfect things that you can eat. Rich in choline, rich in all types of cofactors, minerals. very, very nutrient dense food, but it comes in the form of saturated fat. Fine. That's fine. We don't want to add on to that animal product a bunch of processed foods that will increase our LDL. What we want to do is incorporate good, healthy fats, plant-based fats, to help that saturated fat, to help those nutrients get where they need to get. Avoid trans fat at all costs, right? Stay away from the foods that are cooked to all hell, right? Things like French fries, donuts. I mean, getting back to our talk about diet and not eliminating anything, you don't need to eliminate these things out of your diet. But what I am saying is look at your foods, okay? Start reading the packages. The things that you consume on a daily basis, make them great. Not average foods, make them great. Pay the extra money to have really healthy bread. Pay the money to have good, healthy milk, organic eggs, grass-fed beef, right? If you're eating these things a lot, don't buy the cheap stuff that you're eating on a regular basis. And look at the stuff that you consume that you don't really think about, like your coffee mate. Get away from those processed coffee mate type products because they're rich in hydrogenated vegetable oils, and that's what we want to avoid. Hydrogenated vegetable oils are pretty much trans fats. They're processed to the point where your body just doesn't understand them. Okay. All right. So your assignment for today is this. I want you to define what fat is and list the benefits it has for the body. Okay. And then I also want you to define what LDL is, define what HDL is, and define what total cholesterol is. Okay, so shouldn't take long. Just a quick review of what we've talked about to help drive home the point. Okay, define what fat is. Look it up. What's fat? What are the benefits of fat in the body? List all those. Then define what LDL is, define what HDL is, define what total cholesterol is. Okay. That's it for the day. If you have any questions for me, let me know. Get out and vote. Do your thing. Wednesday, do your assignment. Deuces. Have a good morning. Have a good week. I'm out.